I have burnt out before. When I was a football coach, I was hospitalized about 2, 3 times. And that was because I was working like 90 plus hours a week. I was hospitalized because that was on my mind 24/7. What suffered during that time frame, was, of course, were friendships, relationships, and just me. But that one comment that somebody left on my social media that day really just put me in a shell of myself. And I didn't realize it till I sat down with my business therapist, like, I can't figure out why, but something happened that put me in this shell. And it was that comment. Don't let one person be that one person to derail you. Don't let that one person derail your income. And don't let that one person derail your happiness. So some of you may be asking, like, why would I need it, right? Or why would you need it? Well, I'll tell you what, the things that people don't talk about is when you're a CEO or a founder, there are constant pressures from clients, making sure finances are on point, staff responsibilities, marketing. There's a whole plethora that we have to maintain. That was a business therapist. They find ways to channel that stress so that it's not overwhelming you. And like I said before, once I discovered that's what I needed in my life, instead of just having like a big glop of just like unloading on one therapist, now when I'm in there for my sessions, I'm literally talking like, let's say I have a week where I've dealt with a stressful client. We're talking about that stressful client. We're talking about, hey, what can relieve some of the stressors that I've dealt with so that I'm not dealing with that, later on in the week or multiple times in the week or just sitting on it all night. So what I try to do is I try to meet with my business therapist about 1 to 3 times a week, just depending on it. If it's peak season, if it's off season, it's usually just once a week. But during the off season, it is usually about 2 to 3 times a week. And I'll say that has really played an essential role in my growth as a CEO. Now, here's the reality of business that no one talks about, okay? Especially online. Everybody makes it seem like, hey, everything's perfect when you're a CEO and a founder or a business owner, that there aren't any stressors, that you have all the time in the world. But you know what? That is the complete opposite, because the reality is when you become a business owner or CEO, the key things that you're always looking at is, are my dollars making sense? Are my staff happy? Are my clients happy? Are we doing enough in marketing to make sure that we maintain our competitive edge? So the way I look at it is that my business therapist is almost a responsibility or a must-have asset in my business that I need to make sure I'm providing the best version of me on an everyday basis. So here's some of the things that I'll say my therapist goes through on a regular basis. We talk through the issues that I'm dealing with. We'll go by piece. So let's say, for example, you got a client that you've done amazing things for. And how many of us have done that, right? We've done everything humanly possible. The client got the result that they wanted, and all of a sudden they're like, hey, I'm not happy, or hey, I want my money back. If you haven't encountered yet, you're definitely going to encounter it at some point. My business therapist provides me strategies that I can overcome stress. So let's say, for example, you have a staff member that they've been with the company a little while, or they may be inexperienced and you don't want to fire them. These are some of the things that you can talk with your business therapist about, is like, hey, what is the best way I can approach this, right? Or if you have anxiety, because I'll tell you, talking with my clients that we represent in the consulting group, and even just my colleagues who are my friends in the business world, we all talk about the stressors. And the stressors, I'll tell you, makes what looks like everything is gold all the time, everything is luxurious. It brings you back to reality, because you have to really dig in deep and say, hey, what can I do to make myself better? What can I do to make sure that I'm not bringing any anger or stress home? Because here's one of the other things that many entrepreneurs make a big mistake with: they bring their work problems home. And I'll say to you, especially coming from a big law in corporate America, and even when I was a football coach, one of the key factors I would say is some of the most successful people are always divorced or they're always single. And sadly, is because the correlation that I've been able to speak with my therapist on this is that because people are bringing home their stressors. When you go home, that's time for you to relax. That's time for you to spend time with your loved ones, whether you have children, whether you have spouse, a partner, whatever it is, your home should be your safe haven. Or some of you may be fur parents, where you have a dog or you have a cat. Shout out to my cat Alpha. That's my fur baby. But seriously though, we have times where we need to decompress and we need strategies to decompress. If not, we are going to make our family or our fur babies or our friends, it's going to be a nightmare for them. And that's what we're trying to make sure we avoid. So, touching on some other barriers, it comes with marketing. One of the key things that my therapist has been able to do is unlock barriers that I've created in my mind. Like, for example, I probably would not be singing in front of this camera right now because there was a couple years ago, I had won an award, and from that award, I had somebody like make some really negative comments about my accomplishment, and it kind of put me in a shell. And I actually didn't know it put me in a shell because when I looked at my social media all the way up to that point, I was posting on a regular basis because at one of the firms I was at, I actually had a PR specialist that they had me like purposely do like LinkedIn articles, do videos and those types of things. So it just became a routine for me. And this time frame, I was also a sports broadcaster. So I didn't mind being in the camera at all. Like I love talking to people. I love helping people grow. But that one comment that somebody left on my social media that they really just put me in a shell of myself. And I didn't realize it till I sat down with my business therapist, like, I can't figure out why, but something happened that put me in this shell, and it was that comment. And that set me back probably like maybe 4 years, 3 years, 3 to 4 years. It set me back because during that time frame, it was just like, "Hey, I'm not gonna post online because I was thinking like, who's going to say something about it, right? What is going to be negative? And so these are things that I had to keep in my head, well, get out of my head, I should say. But I didn't know how to. And working with my business therapist, he was able to release all of that anxiety and stress I have. And that's why I'm in front of you today. And I can tell you from the ability of releasing that anxiety I had with social media and even recording videos like this, I'm now free. I feel like a way better version of myself than I was a couple years ago. And from that, we've definitely amped up our profit margins from that because I'm becoming more visible like I used to be. And because you'll learn about me over time. I do not like to be like in the forefront of things. I like to work behind the scenes. I like to move in silence. I'm not big on a rah-rah type. Like you check my social media, I'm not showing you where I'm traveling to every day. I'm not showing you what I eat every day. Now, will I pull my camera out of every meal? Yes, because I'm a fat kid at heart and I'm trying to make sure I document. Like if it's good, I need to make sure I come back to a restaurant later on. And them 19 years of football, sometimes the memory's not as tight as it should be. But in that camera, it'll tell me the location I was at. So just a little tidbit for y'all out there. But I used to be like a Yelpy leader, any Yelpy leaders out there. But yes, I'm a fat kid at heart. I love to eat for those that you will learn, or if you get to ever be around me, I love to eat. That's just a football player in me. But seriously though, my business therapist like truly unlocked that gate I had around being present. And I appreciate him for that to this very day, and will always appreciate him for that, as well as my staff will appreciate that because I can tell you our returns have been a lot better since I've been more visible and being active and not worrying about what people are saying and what people are going to troll you about. That's life. One of the key factors that when I remember hearing back in the days was the late great Bobby Bowden and Joe Paterno were actually on the American Football Coaches Association, AFCA. They were at the conference speaking. And one of the key factors I remember Coach Bowden say was, if people aren't talking about you, you probably aren't doing the right thing. If people aren't talking about you, you're probably not great. So at the end of the day, you know what? Don't let one person be that one person to derail you. Don't let that one person derail your income. And don't let that one person derail your happiness. because there is a trickle down effect. Now let's jump into what I call the mental buckets. One key thing is, as I said before, I don't even think business therapist is a real category. It's literally just something that I realized that I needed to just speak to somebody about my business stressors. So what I've done is I've created these buckets, a bucket for personal life, a bucket for business stuff. And so everything that I talk about to my personal therapist is about relationships, it's about family, it's about everyday life, right? And those are the types of things that I talk to my personal therapist about. I will never cross lanes with my personal therapist and business therapist because I've learned that that structure is what I truly needed. That structure, like I said earlier, has allowed me to really just open up the gates of opportunity for me. It's also opened up the gates of happiness. Like I'm happy again. Like I'm in front of the camera. I'm talking to so many of you out there. I know, and it's the other thing too. I am an open person. If you'll learn to figure this out watching this, I'm an open book. And I feel like I need to say what I'm saying now because there's some of you out there that have probably experienced the same thing I did, and you're probably living in a shell. And I want you to break down those shells, right? I want you to make sure your buckets are aligned where you have your personal therapist and your business therapist, and you become laser focused once you have your mental health in order. And I'll tell you what, that also prevents burnout. I have burnt out before. When I was a football coach, I was hospitalized about 2, 3 times. And that was because I was working like 90 plus hours a week. For those of you in the athletic world know what I mean, especially when you're at a high level doing it. And so I was hospitalized because that was on my mind 24/7. And I will tell you, what suffered during that time frame was, of course, were friendships, relationships, and just me. And what I mean by that was my focus during that time frame was strictly about making sure my players had a better future than when they came onto my program. That was my laser focus and making sure they had opportunities to go to college. It wasn't even the wins and losses because one key thing I've learned in life is when you're doing right and you have a system in place, the wins and the victories will come. So the same thing with your business. If you're doing right and you're doing right by people, it'll come. But going back to the burnout aspect, yes, I literally was hospitalized multiple times, and it's a bad feeling. You literally are sitting in the room, you're answering questions to the doctors on why you burnt out, what you're gonna do next time to prevent that. And I'll tell you, it was a tough thing back then to even say, "Hey, I'm gonna go to a therapist and do that." Honestly, my therapy journey didn't start until 2014 after my grandmother passed, and I realized that I need grief therapy. And I just realized the power that my therapist in Orlando did was truly just opened up the gateways of just happiness of being having strategies to overcome that grief. So I can only imagine the type of football coach I could have been if I would have identified therapy back then. So I challenge all of you that have never gone to a therapist before, do it. Don't worry about the stigmas or judgment if anybody's gonna do that. Remember, at the end of the day, only God can judge you. So don't worry about anybody else who say, "Oh my gosh, you're going to therapy, you're crazy, this, that, and the other." Well, I'll tell you what, there's a little crazy in everybody, especially if you play like football, rugby, or those types of contact sports. Anybody that says they're not, you probably wouldn't worry about them. That's probably the person you need to worry about at the end of the day. All right. But seriously, though, just going back to this, be cautious of burnout. It's real. Having IVs put in you, making sure you're taking all these vitamins and so on, and they're flushing your body. You don't want to do that. It's not a good feeling. So I've been very cognitive of that in my life when I transitioned here to become, a CEO and then a founder. I've taken all of that very seriously, and I refuse to be back in the ER. It wasn't a good feeling. So the key thing that I just want you all to take away from this discussion today is that mental clarity is not a weakness. Mental clarity is infrastructure that we all need. If you have the mental side down in your business and your mind, everything will just flow the way it's supposed to be. Because I tell you what, it doesn't bother me anymore when I have an angry client. I look at our systems, I look at our processes, and I review, of course, like the communications between my staff and the client. And you know what? If every box was checked and that person's still unhappy, at the end of the day, I can't buy happiness for people. I've learned that. So just making sure that we've done the right thing at the end of the day, that mental clarity is my infrastructure. So I challenge all of you out there today that have been second guessing going to therapy, or if you're already in therapy, find a second therapist that you can strictly speak about your business endeavors and your life will change. And I want you all to come back a few months from now. If you take this challenge that I'm telling you, I want you to come back and tell me if it worked for you. And if it did work for you, I want you to put that in the comments so that other people realize that that mental clarity is an asset that you cannot buy. This is Drew Roden. I'm checking out. Talk to you later. God bless.